The person you love wants to share something important. You've been the main topic in their home since last night. Don't scroll, listen to this because this story might touch your heart in ways you never expected. Your heart needs this right now. My beloved child, imagine a quiet evening when an ordinary conversation unexpectedly changes the atmosphere inside an entire home. Imagine a family gathered around the dinner table after another busy day, believing the night will pass like countless others before it. No one expects that one simple question will lead to a conversation that lasts for hours. This is a fictional story about love, courage, family, and the quiet moments that reveal what truly matters. Somewhere last night, while rain softly tapped against the windows and the warmth of home filled every room, the person you love sat quietly at the table, distracted in a way their family had never noticed before. They answered questions with gentle smiles, but their thoughts kept drifting somewhere else. Every few minutes they looked down at their phone, not because a message had arrived, but because your photograph was quietly resting there. They weren't searching for words anymore. They were searching for courage. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, there comes a moment when feelings grow too sincere to remain hidden, and last night became that moment. Dinner had almost ended when someone in the family smiled and casually asked, "You've seemed different lately. Is there something on your mind?" At first they laughed softly, trying to avoid the question. They spoke about work, daily responsibilities, and ordinary things, hoping the conversation would naturally move on. But the people who loved them knew them too well. Their mother gently smiled and said, "You're smiling for no reason tonight. Someone is making your heart happy." The room immediately filled with quiet laughter, yet your soulmate became completely still. Their cheeks turned slightly red, and for the first time in a very long while, they realized they could no longer pretend that nothing had changed inside their heart. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now because after a long silence they finally reached for their phone. Their hands trembled ever so slightly as they unlocked the screen. They looked at your picture for one brief moment before quietly placing the phone on the table. Nobody rushed to pick it up. Nobody interrupted. Their family simply waited patiently. Finally, their mother reached forward, smiled warmly, and looked carefully at your photograph. For several moments she said nothing at all. The silence seemed endless. Your soulmate searched her face, trying to understand what she might be thinking. Every heartbeat felt louder than the last. Then, with remarkable gentleness, she smiled and softly said, "There is something peaceful about this person." Those words immediately filled your soulmate with relief. Out of every possible observation, she had noticed kindness first. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, one by one, other family members looked at your photograph as well. They asked simple questions. What's their name? How did you meet? What kind of person are they? Your soulmate answered carefully, but something unexpected happened. Instead of describing what you looked like, they began describing your character. They spoke about your honesty during difficult conversations. They spoke about the quiet way you encouraged people without expecting recognition. They remembered how you celebrated other people's successes with genuine happiness instead of jealousy. They talked about your patience, your humility, and the calmness you somehow brought into stressful moments. As they continued speaking, they realized something beautiful. Every memory that mattered most had nothing to do with appearances. It had everything to do with the way your presence made life feel a little more hopeful. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now because the conversation became deeper with every passing minute. Their father, who had been quietly listening from across the table, finally spoke. "Tell me something," he said gently. "When you're around this person, do they help you become better, or do they simply make you feel good for a little while?" The question surprised everyone. Your soulmate became completely quiet. They thought carefully before answering. Finally, with complete honesty, they smiled and replied, "They challenge me to become the person I've always hoped I could be. They don't make me feel like I need to pretend. I feel accepted, but I also feel inspired to grow." The room fell silent once again. Their father nodded slowly because that answer told him far more than anything else could have. "Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child," their younger sister quietly smiled before adding, "I've noticed something too. Ever since you met this person, you've become more patient. You complain less. You laugh more. You actually seem peaceful." Everyone looked toward her, surprised by how accurately she had described the changes. Your soulmate laughed softly because they hadn't realized those changes were visible to anyone else. Yet hearing those words made them understand something they had never considered before. Sometimes the people who love us recognize our growth long before we recognize it ourselves. The evening continued, and stories began replacing questions. Your soulmate remembered the first time you encouraged them after they doubted themselves. They remembered a conversation where you reminded them not to give up during a difficult season. They remembered your quiet habit of thanking people for small acts of kindness that most others overlooked. Every memory carried the same lesson. You never tried to become the loudest person in the room. You simply chose compassion again and again. My beloved child, the strongest influence often comes from people who never realize how deeply they are changing the hearts around them. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now, because their mother gently looked at your photograph once more before quietly asking one final question. Have you told this person how much they truly mean to you? The room instantly became silent. Your soulmate looked down at the table and smiled nervously. After several seconds they admitted, not completely. Their mother reached across the table and placed her hand gently over theirs. Don't wait until gratitude becomes regret, she whispered. People deserve to hear the good they have brought into someone else's life while they still have the chance. Those simple words stayed with your soulmate long after dinner ended. They returned to their room carrying thoughts they could no longer ignore. They looked once again at your photograph and quietly reflected on everything that had been shared around the table. They realized the conversation had become much bigger than they ever expected. It had never been about introducing someone to their family. It had become a reminder that the best relationships are built on character, trust, respect, and the quiet ways two people help each other become better. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, while your name had become the main topic inside that home, something else had quietly happened as well. Every family member had begun remembering someone who had once changed their own life through simple acts of kindness. One spoke about an old teacher. Another remembered a trusted friend. Someone else recalled a grandparent whose gentle wisdom still shaped every important decision they made. Without intending to, your story had inspired an entire family to reflect on the people who had quietly helped them become who they are today. As the house slowly grew quiet and everyone prepared for the night, your soulmate remained awake by the window. The stars stretched across the sky while your photograph rested beside them on the table. They smiled softly before whispering, "Tomorrow. I think it's finally time to tell them everything." They believed the evening had already revealed every important truth. But they were completely mistaken. Because while everyone was asleep, one member of the family quietly returned to the living room, picked up your photograph one more time, and noticed a small detail no one else had seen. That single observation reminded them of a forgotten story from many years ago, a story that would completely change the way the entire family viewed your connection. When that hidden memory is finally shared, my beloved child, the conversation that began so gently around the dinner table will become something no one in that home will ever forget. Don't scroll, listen to this because this story is only becoming more meaningful. Your heart needs this right now. My beloved child, after everyone had gone to bed, the house became wonderfully quiet. The lights in the living room were dim, the sound of the clock echoed softly through the hallway, and outside the windows the night sky stretched endlessly above the sleeping neighborhood. Your soulmate believed the conversation had finally come to an end, but someone else in the house remained awake. Their mother quietly walked back into the living room, unable to stop thinking about the photograph she had seen earlier that evening. She gently picked up the phone once more, looked at your picture with thoughtful eyes, and smiled to herself. It wasn't simply your smile that had stayed in her heart. It was the calmness she had noticed in your expression, a quiet confidence that reminded her of someone she had known many years before. She whispered softly, "I've seen eyes like these before." Those words were spoken only to the silence of the room, yet they carried a memory that had waited years to be remembered. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, she walked toward an old bookshelf in the corner of the house and carefully opened a small wooden box filled with faded photographs, handwritten notes, and family keepsakes collected over many years. Slowly she searched through the memories until she found an old photograph of her own father. Looking back and forth between the two pictures, she smiled through quiet tears. "It's not that they look alike," she whispered. "It's the kindness." Her father had always believed that the greatest measure of a person was not found in what they achieved, but in how they treated people who could never repay them. Looking at your photograph reminded her of that same gentle spirit. She suddenly understood why her child had spoken about you with such sincerity. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now because the following morning she invited your soulmate to sit with her before the rest of the family woke up. She placed the old photograph on the table beside your picture and quietly asked, "Do you know why I kept looking at this person last night?" Your soulmate shook their head. She smiled warmly before replying, "Because they remind me of someone who taught me what real kindness looks like." She began sharing stories about her father. How he always listened before speaking, how he treated strangers with the same respect he offered his closest friends, and how he believed that true character revealed itself in ordinary moments when no one was watching. As your soulmate listened, they realized something remarkable. Every story sounded strangely familiar because those same qualities were exactly what they had experienced through you. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, their mother gently folded the old photograph and said, "People spend so much time searching for someone impressive that they sometimes overlook someone deeply good. Never make that mistake." Those simple words settled deeply inside your soulmate's heart. They realized they had admired your kindness for a long time, but now they understood why it felt so rare. You had never tried to appear extraordinary. You simply lived according to values that quietly influenced everyone around you. As breakfast began, the rest of the family gradually joined the conversation. What started the previous evening had clearly not been forgotten. Their younger brother smiled playfully and asked, "So, are we still talking about this mysterious person?" Everyone laughed softly, including your soulmate, but instead of feeling embarrassed this time, they smiled with genuine confidence. "Yes," they answered. "Because they deserve to be talked about." Those words immediately changed the atmosphere. The conversation no longer felt like teasing. It became something heartfelt. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now, because each family member began asking different questions. What makes them laugh? What do they care about most? How do they react when life becomes difficult? Your soulmate answered every question with stories instead of simple answers. They remembered the time you encouraged someone who had almost given up on a dream. They remembered how you quietly thanked a waiter for working late during a holiday. They remembered how you apologized sincerely after a misunderstanding without trying to protect your pride. Every memory painted the same picture. It wasn't one dramatic event that had changed their heart. It was the consistency of your character through countless ordinary moments. Listen to this, because this story is for you. My beloved child, as everyone listened, even the family members who had never met you began feeling as though they somehow knew you already. Their father leaned back in his chair and quietly smiled. You know, he said thoughtfully, I've noticed something. Everyone looked toward him. You haven't described this person by what they own, what they look like, or what they do for a living. Every story you've shared has been about how they make other people feel. Your soulmate became completely silent because they realized it was true. Every meaningful memory they carried was connected to kindness, honesty, encouragement, and respect. Their mother nodded in agreement. That's usually how you recognize someone who has left a real impact, she said gently. Years later, people may forget what they wore or what they accomplished, but they'll remember how safe, valued, and understood they felt around them. Those words remained in everyone's thoughts long after breakfast ended. Perhaps recently you've reflected on the people who have quietly shaped your own life. My beloved child, sometimes the greatest influence doesn't come from dramatic gestures. It comes from consistent kindness, patient listening, honest encouragement, and the willingness to show up for others in ordinary moments. Don't scroll. Your heart needs this right now, because later that afternoon another unexpected event took place. A close family friend stopped by for a visit. During casual conversation, your name naturally came up once again. Smiling, your soulmate showed them your photograph. The family friend looked at it for only a few seconds before unexpectedly saying, I think I've met this person before. Everyone in the room looked surprised. Your soulmate immediately leaned forward. Really? They asked. The visitor nodded slowly. I don't know them well, but I remember one small moment that stayed with me. A few years ago I watched them help an elderly stranger whose car had broken down. They stayed until help arrived, then quietly left before anyone could even thank them. The room fell silent. Yet another story had appeared, another act of kindness you had never spoken about. Listen to this, because this story is for you. My beloved child, your soulmate smiled through quiet emotion. They whispered softly, there are so many things they've done that I'll probably never know. Their mother gently replied, that's exactly why they matter so much. People who do good only when someone is watching leave memories. People who do good when nobody is watching leave legacies. As evening approached once again, your soulmate returned to their room carrying a heart filled with gratitude. They looked at your photograph resting beside the window and quietly admitted something to themselves they had never said aloud before. I don't admire this person because they're perfect, they whispered. I admire them because every story I hear confirms what my heart already believed. For the first time, they no longer wondered whether their feelings were real. They understood that genuine respect grows strongest when it is rooted in character. But, my beloved child, the story is far from over. Just as your soulmate believed the family had finally shared everything there was to say, their grandmother unexpectedly called later that evening. She had heard only a small part of the conversation from another relative. After hearing your name, she became unusually quiet before saying, "Wait. I think I know something about this person that none of you have ever heard." Her voice carried the weight of an old memory. The entire family instantly fell silent. Whatever she was about to reveal had remained hidden for years, and when that forgotten story finally comes into the light, everyone in that home will understand that the conversation which began around the dinner table was only the beginning of a much larger story, one that will forever change the way they see you and the quiet impact one compassionate heart can have on the lives of others. Don't scroll, listen to this because this story is reaching the moment that no one inside that home expected. Your heart needs this right now. My beloved child, after your soulmate's grandmother quietly said, "I think I know something about this person that none of you have ever heard," the entire house became silent. The cheerful conversation stopped immediately. Even the younger family members who had been laughing only moments earlier suddenly looked toward her with curiosity. Your soulmate slowly moved closer, their heart beating faster with every passing second. They had already spent an entire day hearing beautiful stories about your kindness, your honesty, and the quiet way you had influenced people. They believed there could not possibly be anything left to discover. Yet something in their grandmother's voice suggested otherwise. It was not excitement that filled the room. It was respect. She carefully folded her hands together and smiled gently before speaking again. "Many years ago," she said, "I met someone during one of the most difficult seasons of my life. I never knew their full story, and I never expected our paths to cross again. But when I saw that photograph today, I recognized something immediately." Everyone leaned forward. "Not their face," she whispered. "Their heart." Those words settled over the room like complete stillness. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, your soulmate looked at their grandmother with complete attention. She rarely spoke dramatically. Every member of the family knew that whenever she shared a memory, every detail mattered. She quietly continued, "Years ago I was traveling home after visiting a close friend in the hospital. It had been a very emotional day. I was tired, overwhelmed, and carrying worries I didn't share with anyone. While waiting at a small station, I accidentally dropped my bag. Everything inside scattered across the ground. Most people walked past without stopping because everyone was in a hurry. Then one young person quietly knelt beside me. They didn't ask who I was. They didn't ask where I came from. They simply smiled and helped gather every single thing I had dropped." She paused as tears gently formed in her eyes. "Before leaving, they looked at me and said something I have never forgotten. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now because everyone in the room waited in complete silence." The grandmother smiled softly before repeating the words that had remained in her heart for years. They said, "Take care of yourself. The world becomes a little better every time someone chooses kindness instead of rushing away." The room remained absolutely still. Your soulmate slowly looked down at your photograph resting on the table. They whispered quietly, "That sounds exactly like something they would say." Their grandmother nodded. "I never learned their name that day. I only remembered the piece they left behind. When I saw this picture tonight, I immediately recognized that same gentle expression. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, your soulmate felt overwhelmed. They had come into the conversation hoping their family would simply understand why you mattered to them. Instead, every hour seemed to reveal another unexpected story. Every family member now carried a different memory connected to the same truth. Your kindness had never been limited to one place or one group of people. It had quietly reached lives you never even realized you had touched. Your soulmate's father smiled thoughtfully before saying, "It's becoming impossible to believe these are just coincidences. Every story points to the exact same kind of character." The grandmother nodded before continuing. "There is something else I never told anyone. After that stranger helped me, I went home feeling lighter than I had in months. That simple conversation encouraged me to reconnect with an old friend I had stopped speaking to after a misunderstanding. We repaired our friendship, and she remained one of my closest companions for the rest of her life." That single act of kindness changed far more than one afternoon. It quietly changed years of my future. Tears filled the room because everyone suddenly realized how far one compassionate moment can travel. "Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now," because another surprising voice entered the conversation. Your soulmate's uncle, who had listened quietly for most of the evening, smiled before saying, "Now I understand why this person has been on everyone's mind since last night. Every story we hear teaches us something about ourselves too." He looked directly at your soulmate and added, "Have you noticed something? No one has talked about success, popularity, or achievements. Every conversation has been about how this person made others feel." Your soulmate smiled through emotion because that observation captured everything they had struggled to explain. They softly replied, "That's exactly why they matter to me. Listen to this because this story is for you." "My beloved child," the family continued talking long into the evening. Instead of asking whether you were perfect, they asked questions that truly mattered. How do they respond when someone disagrees with them? Do they keep their promises? Are they patient with people who need extra time? Every answer your soulmate gave strengthened the same picture. You listened before speaking. You apologized when you were wrong. You celebrated other people's victories. You encouraged growth without demanding recognition. By now, no one in the room doubted the sincerity behind your soulmate's admiration. Perhaps recently you have reflected on the people who have quietly influenced your own life. My beloved child, genuine character is rarely revealed through one extraordinary moment. It is revealed through hundreds of ordinary choices made with consistency, honesty, patience, and compassion. Those quiet decisions often become the memories people carry for years. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now because just before everyone prepared to end the evening, your soulmate's grandmother stood up and slowly walked toward an old cabinet. She carefully opened one drawer and removed a small handwritten journal she had kept for decades. Turning several pages, she smiled softly before saying, "I think I wrote about that day." Everyone gathered around as she searched through faded entries. Finally she stopped on one page. The handwriting was slightly uneven with age, but one paragraph remained perfectly readable. She quietly read aloud, "Today a stranger reminded me that goodness still exists. I never asked for their name because somehow it didn't seem important. I only prayed that wherever life took them, they would continue bringing hope to people the way they brought hope to me today." When she finished reading, tears quietly rolled down your soulmate's face. My beloved child, they realized something extraordinary in that moment. Long before you had become important in their own life, your kindness had already been quietly shaping the lives of people they loved most. They smiled through tears and whispered, "Maybe this is why meeting them always felt so familiar. Maybe kindness has a way of connecting people long before they ever realize it." The family sat together in peaceful silence. No one felt the need to fill the room with unnecessary words. The stories they had shared had already spoken loudly enough. Every person present understood that your photograph had become much more than an image. It had become a reminder that ordinary acts of compassion can leave extraordinary legacies. But, my beloved child, the journey is not over yet. Later that same night, after everyone had gone to sleep, your soulmate received an unexpected message from someone they had not spoken to in years. The message contained only one sentence: "I just heard your family has been talking about them, but there is one story none of you know." Your soulmate stared at the screen in complete disbelief. Their heart began racing once again because they sensed that another hidden chapter was waiting to be revealed. Whatever this forgotten story contained would not only surprise the entire family, it would finally explain why your name had quietly remained connected to so many hearts for so many years, and why the conversation that began at the dinner table was destined to become a memory their family would treasure forever. Don't scroll, listen to this, because this story has reached the chapter where every conversation, every memory, and every unexpected revelation finally comes together. Your heart needs this right now. My beloved child, long after the lights in the house had been turned off and every room had fallen silent, your soulmate remained awake. The message on the phone screen refused to leave their thoughts. "I just heard your family has been talking about them, but there is one story none of you know." They read the sentence over and over again, wondering what could possibly remain hidden after everything their family had already discovered. Throughout the past 24 hours, they had heard stories from their mother, father, grandmother, family friends, and even strangers whose lives had somehow crossed paths with yours. Every memory revealed another quiet act of kindness. Every conversation painted the same picture of a heart that had chosen compassion over recognition. Surely there couldn't be another chapter waiting to be uncovered. Yet something deep inside told them this final story would explain everything. Listen to this, because this story is for you. My beloved child, after a few moments of hesitation, they replied to the message with one simple question. What story? The answer came almost immediately. It's too important to explain through text. Can we meet tomorrow morning? Your soulmate hardly slept that night. As the first rays of sunlight entered the room, they quietly left the house after telling their family they would return soon. Their heart carried curiosity, but it also carried gratitude. No matter what they were about to hear, the past day had already changed them forever. They arrived at a quiet little cafe on the edge of town where the old friend was already waiting. After exchanging warm greetings, they sat together in silence for a moment. Finally, the friend smiled and gently placed a small envelope on the table. "Do you recognize this?" they asked. Your soulmate shook their head. "It was given to me years ago," the friend explained, "with one request, that if I ever met someone whose life had been deeply changed by this person, I should share it with them." Your soulmate's heart immediately began racing. Carefully opening the envelope, they found a folded piece of paper. Across the top were handwritten words that instantly caught their attention: "Never underestimate the quiet power of one act of kindness. Don't scroll." Your heart needs this right now, because the letter was unlike anything they expected. It wasn't addressed to one specific person. It was written as a reminder for anyone who might one day read it. The first line said, "If these words ever reach you, I hope they remind you that the smallest moments often become the greatest turning points in another person's life. You may never know whose hope was restored because you chose to listen. You may never know whose future changed because you chose patience instead of judgment. Do good anyway." Tears quietly filled your soulmate's eyes. The handwriting looked familiar. The message sounded exactly like the values they had heard described again and again over the past day. The friend continued speaking. There's something else you should know. A few years ago, this person volunteered at a community center every weekend. Hardly anyone knew because they never talked about it. They spent hours encouraging young people who had lost confidence in themselves. They never tried to become the center of attention. They simply listened, encouraged, and reminded people that one difficult season does not define an entire life. Your soulmate closed their eyes as emotion overwhelmed them. Every new story confirmed what their heart already believed. Your kindness had never depended on who was watching. Listen to this because this story is for you. My beloved child, after leaving the cafe, your soulmate drove home slowly, holding the envelope carefully in their hands. They weren't rushing anymore. They wanted to appreciate every thought that had filled their heart over the past 2 days. They realized they had spent so much time admiring you that they almost forgot the greatest lesson your example was teaching them. Genuine goodness is not something we simply admire from a distance. It is something we choose to practice ourselves. When they walked through the front door, the whole family was waiting. Their grandmother smiled knowingly. "I can tell you've heard another story," she said. Your soulmate nodded quietly before placing the letter in the middle of the table. One by one, every family member read it. When they finished, no one spoke immediately. There was nothing left to prove. There were no debates. There were no questions. Only quiet gratitude filled the room. Their father finally broke the silence. "I think we've all been looking at this the wrong way," he said gently. Everyone turned toward him. "We keep asking why this person has become the main topic in our home. But maybe the better question is this: why has hearing these stories made every one of us want to become kinder ourselves?" The room became still again because everyone knew he was right. Don't scroll, your heart needs this right now because something beautiful happened next. Their younger sister quietly admitted, "I want to call one of my friends and apologize for something I've been avoiding." Their brother smiled and said, "I think I'm going to spend more time helping Grandpa this weekend." Their mother looked around the table with tears in her eyes and whispered, "This conversation has reminded me not to wait until tomorrow to tell people how much they matter." Even their grandmother smiled warmly and said, "Kindness multiplies." That's why stories like these never truly end. My beloved child, your soulmate quietly listened to every word before finally standing. They looked at the family they loved and softly said, "I thought I wanted all of you to understand why this person means so much to me. Instead, I discovered something far more important. Their greatest gift was never that they changed my life. It's that everyone who hears about them wants to become a better version of themselves." Those words filled the room with peace. Listen to this because this story is for you. As evening arrived once more, your soulmate walked outside beneath a sky filled with stars. They carried no questions now. They carried only gratitude. Looking toward the quiet horizon, they whispered, "Thank you for reminding me that the strongest people are often the gentlest, that the greatest influence is often the quietest, and that real character is revealed through ordinary choices made every single day." They returned inside, opened a blank notebook, and wrote one final list, not of dreams, but of promises. "I will speak appreciation before regret. I will choose patience before frustration. I will encourage before I criticize. I will protect another person's dignity. I will remember that every person I meet is carrying a story I cannot see. I will let kindness become my daily habit instead of my occasional choice." When they closed the notebook, they smiled with a peace they had never experienced before. My beloved child, this fictional story began with one simple idea. The person you love wanted to share something important because you had become the main topic inside their home. Yet the real surprise was not that your name was discussed around a dinner table. The true surprise was that every conversation revealed another reminder of what truly matters in life. Not success. Not popularity. Not appearances. But honesty that builds trust. Compassion that brings healing. Humility that earns respect. And kindness that quietly travels from one heart to another, often reaching people we may never even meet. As the lights in the home slowly turned off once again, everyone carried something new into tomorrow. They carried a deeper appreciation for ordinary moments, a renewed desire to speak gratitude while there was still time, and the understanding that the most meaningful legacy anyone can leave behind is not measured by achievements but by the lives they quietly encourage. The conversation that began with curiosity had become a family memory they would never forget. And long after the stories themselves faded, the lesson remained: one sincere heart has the power to inspire countless others, not through grand speeches or extraordinary fame, but through simple acts of love, respect, patience, and compassion repeated faithfully, one ordinary day at a time.